Okay. Doodle log 7 or 8. Don't know. Trying something slightly different. I put the curtain around me, see if it will dampen sound. I've got one of them whirry extraction fans in here. I don't seem to be able to turn it off without the system not coming back on without someone having to come and do it. So hopefully this does the trick. As you can see, the previous doodle has bled through the page here, which gives it a specific style. Some of the shapes you can still see, but I know in a previous log I did something similar and it seemed to work okay. Different. I'm using a brush pen this time, give it a little bit more flow. Ordered some slightly better pens because I like these ones, but especially the, I don't know, it's like some people are telling me the very small fine line tips tend to run out, but I found it's actually the thicker ones. But I don't know. Probably depends what you're doing with them. Maybe I use the thicker one more, which I probably do. So I normally put lines in with the thick one and then work my way smaller with detailing. That's when I'm doing less doodly abstracty. But there's been a little bit of a break here in the uploading. It's difficult to find the time. And then, you know, you realise you really should have been making that time. But it always feels like it's stolen time to me, even though it's only 20 minutes. The editing I do is pretty simplistic, to say the least. I don't really know much about video production. But I know how to talk, and I know how to art. So hopefully at some point it'll translate. I would imagine it's a bit jinky at the moment. And I won't know how jinky until much, much later. And then I'll look at it and go, oh my god, is this man doing? But I guess we'll see. Definitely a relaxing exercise, this. And freeing. Oh, and I forgot to adjust the focus, so whenever my hand went in, that was probably blurry. And that is because I've had a break from this and not paying enough attention. Forget the simple things. I did sort of write down the process, but I didn't write down refocus the focus, I guess. What else can I see? Anything? Circle any outlying blobs of colour. kind of like this because it's like me working with me. It's like a collaboration. Just keep working on the same thing. Obviously I couldn't have planned what I was going to do with the bleed through because I had no idea what would and wouldn't bleed through. Because I'm going to take a guess and you wouldn't know this had bled through. I suppose some of the shapes are still here, like coming in and out, especially this bit seems to repeat itself. It was a little while ago I did it, so I'm not 100% sure I even remember what the image was like. But let's jazz it up here. Some wavy lines. Wavy lines are always abstracty and fun. But definitely in the last one I was thinking about how it would look to do a tutorial, and to be honest with you, I wouldn't really know how to do it. So I see them everywhere, and I'm like, oh, I could draw that. I've got to make a tutorial for it, that's another question. I'm good at training people, but I think for me I'd find it much easier if someone was in front of me than, because you could see where they were at with it. But I guess you could do a video like that. If you found someone to tutor and then just filmed it. Alright, let's start with some colour. Yeah, these are much noisier. The sound is pretty satisfying. I would really like to go and do my spaceship things again, like I have on the Instagram, but I think it just takes up so much more time than this. And really, to keep the creative bugs at bay, you just gotta make something. It doesn't have to be spectacular. I think even doodling on things sometimes really helps. Just keep that bugbear at bay. But again, if you're not very good at drawing, which we all weren't once upon a time, I think these are a really good place to start. Just something fun that you can make. If you can doodle something fun, you're much more likely to gain all of the other skills. Still learning to use these pens, really. I like this sort of effect you get, and it's like a lighter colour, a darker colour. You get the crossover, which if I had any idea what I was doing, you could probably do something quite specific with it. Does that work? Kinda. So if you go darker, and then we'll go across. Yeah, that kind of works. But yeah, if you bleed it too much, it works less. So it's like there's an element of speed with these. But also I think a good part of doodling is just experimenting. think you quite often see when people are just doodling on a piece of paper, like there's the abstract weirdness, so just shaded shapes and things like that, and then somewhere in the middle there's something like a samurai or something, and you're like, oh, that's very good. And I know a lot of people, you need the doodle energy. There's the example I always think of is my maths textbook, and my maths textbook was always covered in all sorts of things, because maths is quite a boring subject. I don't think maths itself is boring. I think learning maths in school is very boring. Maths can be very interesting, but I do remember sitting in the classroom, it's not a particularly interesting subject. I imagine it's a very difficult subject to teach. I don't envy maths teachers, but someone's got to teach people maths. You asked me, the textbook was the best at teaching you maths, but then you had to want to read the textbook, which is why I used to doodle on my book, because I doodled on my book, didn't listen to the teacher, and then I did the maths from the textbook. I think this is true of a lot of learning. It's why a lot of us, myself included, go back to higher education later on, because when you're at school you don't really get it what it's about. When you've worked a little bit, you got slightly more of a motive. And I say this having dropped out of higher education twice as an adult, and I get the feeling at this point it's not really for me. I think you can definitely feel like that's an inadequacy and you don't quite feel good enough. And I think there's a lot of reasons higher education can be more annoying for different people. For me personally, I don't understand the whole system, really. You do something to prove that you can do it, but no one would ever actually expect you to do it in the real world. Yeah. When you do a paper, you look it up. You don't just go, oh, I've got an hour, let me bang this out and hope it's okay from what I can get from memory. Yeah, you're a professional, you look up the facts, you find out whether you're right or not, and then you make a hypothesis. I just found it just felt like a waste of my time and a waste of whoever had to read its time. No value being gained to anyone, but I think I'd rather read a book personally. I don't need someone to tell me I know something. And I get it, if you've got a job in mind, you just got to jump through them hoops, but I would say try not to worry about it too much if you've got to do it. Just jump through them hoops, do the best you can. It's one of those things that I remember myself getting quite anxious about writing an essay, but the truth is, no matter what you do, your tutor is going to come back with some notes. So it's sort of one of those things, it's like you're sort of trying to do perfection, but you're not even supposed to be trying to do perfection. You're supposed to be doing the best you can in the time you have. And I would think it's a better policy to do it. I think that it's okay, and then just see what the tutor comes back with, because you could spend hours trying to figure out what you're doing wrong, and the reality is it's probably better to to do the wrong thing, submit it, and get actual feedback saying, yes, this is exactly what you're doing wrong. Because half the time, the thing you think you're doing wrong isn't what the tutor will tell you. But I completely appreciate that's difficult to internalise. You're always going to... Well, I guess some people don't find that. That's like their innate self. But if you find yourself trying to perfection, just... No, with those sorts of things, it's just pointless. Even with writing a book, it's like something I've come to. As I wrote quite a lot of short stories. And then the more you do your reading about how exactly you get a book published, the more they tell you nobody publishes a book without having an editor go over it. So you could, and I have, go over it a dozen times, if not more, trying to write perfection. But the truth is, you're too close to it. It's just not going to happen. You've got to accept that somebody else is going to be able to tell you exactly how to make it better, and they're going to be able to do that on the first go through because they're just not as close to it as you. They haven't spent hours and hours on something. It's not something that came out of their head. They can just look at it and go, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. I guess that's what happens to TV programs. You know, people get defensive and protective, and then you end up with a bad program. But the reality is, if you just showed it to more people, some people guide you. Not to say I like anything that's made by committee. It's quite nice sometimes to see something that's sort of terrible, but also just came out of one mind, and you're like, oh, right, this is the thing we're seeing here. This is one vision. I quite think this of the Star Wars prequels, because I know a lot of people don't seem to think they're very good, but I just like that it's just one vision. And I don't think that they're perfect, but I just like that this is what I'm trying to say. And it is what it is. Whereas with the new ones, they look like they were made by committee. There's no real vision going on. I'd rather see a crappy vision than no vision at all. But probably coloured in that sense, because when I saw something like The Phantom Menace, I was a child, so I know we all like things from childhood, which sometimes we look at in the daytime and go, what on earth? But I'm also biased because I like the politics. I think it's interesting actually, because the politics is much more traditional science fiction, despite, you know, it being a self-confessed fantasy. It is a fantasy land, wizards and knights and things. And you know, sometimes there are cat and horse people if you ever read the comics and things. It's fantasy, not science fiction. But politics is definitely more science fiction than it is fantasy. Although there's politics and fantasy as well. It just seems to make less sense for some reason. Interesting. I guess it's all a matter of degrees, isn't it? Who's to say what's good? No one. You enjoy what you enjoy. Other than that, try not to worry. And if you have someone who's judgy, just don't take it personally. I've been there. I mean, the Dune film doesn't do much for me, but I read the book, so, you know, I'm just expecting way too much of the film. It's just never going to deliver. The book is too damn good. Anyway, right, oh, we're at 20 minutes. Alright. That's what we've made. It's got very 80s vibes going on. But yeah, interesting.